Welcome to Wednesday Debate Live with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight we'll be talking about Egypt's diplomatic renaissance since June 30th revolution. How some revolutions might change governments, others would change the course of history at large. June 30th revolution did something even greater than that, and it definitely safeguarded a nation. It restored the authority of the state and also laid the foundation for Egypt that would once again speak with confidence, that would act with independence, and would earn the respect of the whole world. What began as a popular movement to preserve the country's identity has evolved into a remarkable story of a nation, of national resilience, of political stability, of economic transformation, and definitely diplomatic excellence. Today, Egypt maintains strategic partnerships across the whole world, East and West, without compromising its sovereign decision-making or its national interests. And this wouldn't have been possible without June 30th revolution. That is a turning point that has protected Egypt from threat that was posed by the Brotherhood terrorist group, whose rule had definitely driven the country towards deep political polarization. But instead, Egypt embarked on a new path, and that centered on rebuilding the whole state, rebuilding the institutions of the state, of restoring public confidence, and also of reclaiming the historical, regional, and international standing of the country. Tonight we'll be revisiting once again the legacy of June 30th revolution through the lens of foreign policy. How Egypt did transform this sense of stability after June 30th revolution into later on diplomatic excellence. How the balanced diplomacy became one of the nation's greatest strengths meantime, and how Egypt's independent foreign policy elevated its position as a trusted partner and as a leading force for peace. Answering all those questions, we're really having honored to have with us one of Egypt's most distinctive and refined diplomats, His Excellency Ambassador Raouf Saad, a former assistant to the foreign minister. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for coming.
Very welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. First of all, before our in-depth discussion, let's have a look at the top stories of the day as Egypt reinforced its global diplomatic network as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had received on Wednesday the credentials of 17 newly appointed ambassadors to Cairo from Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. The ceremony highlighted Egypt's commitment to strengthening bilateral relations and expanding cooperation across political, economic, and cultural fields. The President welcomed the new ambassadors, reaffirming Egypt's pride in its diverse international partnerships and its determination to deepen mutual collaboration. The President emphasized Egypt's readiness to provide full support to facilitate their missions and advance shared interests, reflected on Cairo's continued pursuit of balanced diplomacy and its role as a key hub for regional and global engagement. And before delving into our discussion, let's first have a look at this report that tackled how June 30th revolution had redefined Egypt's foreign policy.
How June 30 revolution redefined Egypt's foreign policy 13 years after the June 30 revolution, Egypt stands as a compelling example of how political stability can evolve into diplomatic strength. What began as a defining moment to preserve the Egyptian state has become the cornerstone of a foreign policy built on a strategic balance, national independence, and constructive engagement with all partners. In his message marking the anniversary, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi described the June 30 revolution as an enduring expression of the Egyptian people's determination to safeguard their national identity and restore the country's path toward a secure and prosperous future. The President reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to continuing the journey of building the new republic, strengthening the nation's capabilities, and advancing security, stability, and sustainable development. This stability restored after June 30 revolution transformed Egypt into one of the Middle East's most influential diplomatic actors. Cairo has successfully pursued a balanced foreign policy based on mutual respect, shared interests and strategic independence. This multidimensional approach has enabled Egypt to deepen cooperation simultaneously with the United States, Europe, China, Russia, with reinforcing its strategic partnership across the Arab world and Africa. And today Egypt is widely recognized as a trusted voice for dialogue and regional stability, whether mediating conflicts, advocating ceasefires, facilitating humanitarian assistance or supporting political solutions to regional crises. Egyptian diplomacy has consistently emphasized the lasting peace can only be achieved through negotiation, respect for sovereignty and adherence to international law. Over the past 13 years, Egypt has also translated diplomatic stability into economic opportunity by attracting strategic investments, expanding international partnership, enhancing regional connectivity, and reinforcing its position as a pivotal gateway linking Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. This comprehensive vision reflects a foreign policy that complements national development while protecting Egyptian independent decision-making. As Egypt celebrates the June 30 revolution, the anniversary is not only a celebration of historic national milestone, but also a testament to the country's remarkable diplomatic evolution. Guided by unwavering commitment to peace, stability and cooperation, Egypt continues to strengthen its global standing while contributing meaningfully to regional security and international peace, proving that balanced diplomacy remains one of the nation's greatest strategic achievements.
Ambassador Saad, as Egypt celebrated the 13th anniversary of June 30th revolution, the revolution that did lay the foundation of preserving the state and the state institutions, and definitely was also a breakthrough for a diplomatic triumph for the country after June 30th revolution, as came in His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's message on the occasion. So how do you read the diplomatic significance of the President's message in the first place?
Well, it's huge, but let me, if I may, add to your excellent definition of what the revolution meant. That I would just add that it's in addition to all the very excellent introduction. I would see I would call it a revolutionary uprising of a nation. And thank you for using the word nation, because that means a larger perception of what we are talking about Egypt in terms of a nation, and how a nation got into a revolutionary uprising in order to rescue its identity, its historical civilizational identity, and preempting a move. Had it a regime, had it lasted longer than that, it could have pushed Egypt backward for 100 years of dark, no culture, underdevelopment. So the significance of this revolution is not just like any regular revolution. It's not a regime change, yes, but it's an identity rescue and revival. Mm-hmm. In fact, in order to understand its impact on the foreign policy, we have to correct a kind of misunderstanding among so many people. They think that the foreign policy is separate from the internal situation, yeah, while it's part and parcel of the total, the overall national strategy and its programs and its policies. But in fact, what happened is, I would think it's in terms of history, that the impact was so significant in so many aspects, but since the time is always limited, let me put it first, that one of the main new characters that have been portrayed in the new foreign policy is what ethics mean.
Yeah.
Usually, people think, that foreign policy maneuvers all the time in order to serve the national policies regardless of.
Yeah.
But this has been declined. And we have been seeing, in so many cases and examples that ethics have become an original part of the Egyptian foreign policy. Let me take the last statement made by His Excellency President Sisi when he said we never used the issue of refugees.
Yes.
in order to serve political interests. So this is just one example that reflects, how the ethical aspect has become an original part of the foreign policy. Second, and this is again very, very significant in terms of how to govern and run your foreign relations. Usually, in the case of Egypt, due to the circumstances, political circumstances, it has been always, in a way, cornered and the balance between the superpowers. Mm-hmm. And that would imply that you have to suffer from either concessions or balances. This has been changed, and people may not, because we don't talk about much about it. If you just think of how the foreign policy looks like, you will find that there is a margin of balances and balances and concessions. And this is very much related to how wide is your interest internationally. So what happened since President Sisi assumed power? That the base of the Egyptian interest abroad has been eroded significantly, and that came on the own expense of concessions and balances. So this was very, very important. Third is we have been seeing how the foreign policy is being directly linked with the internal policy, with different aspects. For example, culturally.
Yes.
Because the culture was one of the main target of the Muslim Brothers when they were in power.
Of course, the soft power of Egypt, because it's a very important tool in the first place.
So, I mean, if that becomes a part of not only a soft point, but a soft power, it's part of your
identity.
Your identity, mm-hmm. your smart power.
Yes.
That people are seeing, how Egypt is. I would say reminding the world what is really Egypt. Egypt, which is geographically and practically in the middle of the world. I mean, if you look at the map, you'll find that Egypt just very much in the center of the map. And they have been seeing a wonderful test of the new foreign policy, particularly in the Gaza war.
Yes.
Because the way the political leadership has governed this with patience, wisdom, self-restraint, and how you run a war, a crisis of a war, in a way that would not put Egypt in a point of failure or becoming a loser. And that's why I think, just to put it very clear in this regard, I have been saying that in different occasions, that President Sisi had two traps: one, either migration or confrontation. And he succeeded with this kind of very, very wise foreign policy, mm-hmm. that to bring these two traps to become two exits, and to move from a war situation to a peace situation. Yes. Regardless of that the obstacles are being put in order not to go through this second phase of the President Trump plan. But that I can testify, from my contacts with the different diplomats, in the Western world, that they know they are very good reader of history. They know who Egypt is not just a normal, but they have been reminded, mm-hmm. that with a kind of a new modernized foreign policy that have been serving not only Egypt, had been serving the region, had been serving even the world. Because there is something happened, you know, in Gaza war and what's happening in Iran, that the Middle East is no longer on the receiving end.
Yeah.
Have become part of the global transformation that which is taking place. And this was one of the main results of the new foreign policy in Egypt.
Definitely, as we are celebrating the 13th anniversary of June 30th revolution, and Egypt is proceeding with its diplomatic triumphs on more than one front, and it has actually changed the perception of how the world eyes Egypt or sees Egypt right after the revolution, expanding Egypt's diplomatic outreach. And on the occasion, His Excellency President Sisi has received earlier in the day the credentials of 17 ambassadors representing 17 countries. So once again, this sense of representation and reinforcing the success story of Egypt's diplomacy after June 30th.
Well, there are 2 points I want just to mention here. You know, we are one of the countries that has the largest number of diplomatic missions. We have almost 160 diplomatic missions. And the second point, that in many cases, you know, the mission, the diplomatic mission in Egypt covers not only 3 or 4 countries, sometimes the whole Middle East. This is not to economize the budget, but this means that once you are in Egypt, you know, you can follow all the developments in the region, because, well, the fact is that, and that has been a reality that has been reaffirmed, that Egypt is, you cannot have any kind of development in Egypt's absence. It's part and parcel of any development. It's a country indispensable to any development, particularly when you are talking about war and peace. So they have here, they can mirror all the developments taking place in the region through just being in Cairo. So
definitely, Ambassador. We'll be talking about the achievements realized after June 30th revolution. Short break and we'll be back. Welcome back, Your Excellency. And talking June 30th revolution, definitely it has been the cornerstone, or let me say the launching pad for Egypt's diplomatic triumph stages later after.
The changes are really incredible, and you think that it's a new foreign policy, but I would say it's a modernized, because the foreign policy is very old, you know, in Egypt's history, even before the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was established. One of the major aspects that we are being seeing, 2 areas that maybe time will allow us to talk about them. One is that the culture has become part of the foreign policy, not in terms of preaching new culture, but you know, you have, let's put it there, the culture in terms of a soft power. And the soft power you have is rather unique. You have the mosque, you have the church, you have the arts, you have the music, you have the tourism, you have aviation. I mean, so many aspects that not so many countries could enjoy such advantages of soft power.
And now we have the World Cup as well.
Yes.
As Egypt has qualified for the 32nd round, actually, and is preparing for the highly anticipated match to be playing against Australia. So I guess that this is also one of the soft power tools that has been, in such moments, has been really reinforced after June 30th revolution. Egypt, the confident Egypt, the ambitious Egypt, the looking forward Egypt.
Very much so, and thank you for mentioning this. But I would see what's happening in terms of sports, not only in terms of the matches, but why the team is so motivated. It's not a matter of good manager or a better training. It's an Egyptian motivation. I mean, the sense of home, the sense of the nation, the sense of the people, the sense of Egypt is really very much motivating them. But if you go back, you know, to what is happening in the soft power, this is something. If it continues with this kind of maximizing, you know, the impact, you would see that there is a new marriage between the soft power and the economic interests, and this marriage is producing what we call the smart power. And this is something not so many countries can do it. I mean, you can have soft power, huge economic interests, but you cannot have this kind of marriage, you know, because it's being served by your geographical location and with your history, with your civilization. So this is something that would serve both the soft power as well as the economic interest. The other thing is that it's something that is taking place recently, since the international cooperation has been added to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that reflected today, for example, the governor and the World Bank is the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
So that would bring a new tool for the foreign policy, and that would reflect very much the mutual linkages between the internal situation and the foreign policy. And this is the only normal thing that should have taken place from the very beginning. But now it's being maximized, being invested in, and that you will be talking about the foreign policy and investment. Yes. You will be talking about the foreign policy and Suez economic zone or the tourism. Or so this is it's not only an advantage for the foreign policy, it is a national maximized well integrated foreign policy that is being serving all the interests, you know, of Egypt through its missions. And we have again one of the largest countries that have missions abroad. Yes. Some people would say, why too many missions? No, I mean, a mission that you are moving Egypt into the very country in order to serve its national interests. So we are heading, I don't want to use huge word, but I have this time to use, we are heading, in spite of all the challenges, a renaissance that was even rescued, you know, through the 30th of June revolution. Yeah. The renaissance, because with the liberal approaches to ideas, even to culture, even, I mean, let me put it this way, I don't think that, you know, the statement has been made and the efforts is being made by His Excellency President Sisi in order to reform the distorted understanding of religion. I mean, this is a very daring adventure. You know, in a region, you know, with where religion is playing an implanted heritage. So we are being sometimes we are, you know, for the normal watchers, followers may not understand and may not correctly interpret what's happening, but that you'll be seeing the fruits on a daily basis.
Yes, well, definitely, Ambassador, the world's perception of Egypt has definitely changed after June 30th revolution. We've been working on more than one front diplomatically, reviving our relations with Africa, and this has been one of the milestones. This important African presence, revival of the African engagement. As we're celebrating also June 30th, we have significant steps into deeper engagements with Europe. Even our relations with the United States has also been quite remarkable after June 30th revolution. The different platforms that Egypt has been engaged in internationally, like the BRICS and more. So we've seen this sense of a diplomatic vision that has emerged after June 30th revolution in a sense of reinforcement, as Your Excellency has mentioned.
Wallahi, you just I need, I mean, your ideas, you know, would motivate me in order to speak even more. I'll just choose two areas of your introduction: Africa and Europe. I think Africa, we have been always enjoying historical relations with Africa, but let us be clear that, you know, that the mutual interest between Egypt and its brothers is far less than what could be done. But what I think it's starting to 2019 specifically, since President Sisi has been the president of the AU in 2008,
yes,
the African agenda has become a priority, strategic priority in the Egyptian foreign policy. And it's not only by protocol, by meeting presidents or attending meetings, but what I have been watching and following practically, that we are seeing what we can call a re-entry into Africa. Mm-hmm. Re-entry in terms that, you know, what you're having so many successful projects in different African countries. However, this is much less that we can do. We need a kind of a strategic framework, you know, and this is what's been happening now. That, you know, in order to not only to go and to depend on slogans or the historic relations, but with mutual interest. And you would not be, you know, I have been twice a presidential envoy to Africa. And I have been always seeing in their eyes, where are you? They need us. Yeah. And we have to, what's being formulated now, that it's not that you go there and you try to build a project here and there. It's how you use your comparative advantages that would serve their needs. It's not only you go there that I have what I can do. No, what do you need? I think this is being in the kitchen now, and we'll be seeing very much the results, you know, the fruits of a new thinking. Because it's not only economic interest, it's a kind of, you know, Africa is being is suffering from huge challenges. The last one of them, and I think I'm one of, yesterday I wrote an article about that, you know, the penetration is being done by Israel by the recognition of Somaliland and having an embassy for Somaliland in Jerusalem. It's a very, very dangerous penetration by Israel. That would, it's being planned in a way in order to create a kind of chaotic situation all over Africa, particularly in the Red Sea, in the Suez Canal, Bab el-Mandeb, so on and so forth. So you'll not go after them. But the only way in order to confront this kind of challenge is how to contain this by interest. And the Africans will be very much receptive of the Egyptian entry. The second is Europe. Europe, for Egypt, for Europe, is not just a country. It's a neighbor country, the largest neighboring country, and you know, and having the Mediterranean between us, you know, has established a new reality that all problems, all advantages are exchangeable between Europe and Egypt. But the events that have been taking place, you know, since Gaza and Iran has, as I have just mentioned, has flagged that, well, Egypt is Egypt. Egypt should be dealt with in a different way. And that's why the European Union have been doing over the past two or 3 years, two important, the media should focus on them. For example, elevating the relationship between the EU and Egypt to a strategic level. Yes. This is not just a word in order to be published in the newspapers. Mm-hmm. That means that you go deeper and not in terms of, I have been always saying that even to the Europeans, don't think that whatever you provide as assistance, this is not assistance, it is an investment in your interest.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. And for example, that you maybe have talked about it with you in one of those programs. Egypt has been admitted to one of the largest research pool in the world, which is called Horizon Europe. And since I was ambassador in Brussels in the 90s, I'm not too old, but that's what has happened. That, you know, I have tried to bring, you know, to Egypt as a member and this program. That would mean that as a member would take part in designing the programs for the receiving countries, including Egypt, of course. And this was very, very costly. And for them, it wasn't politically worth it at that time. But you know, lately, last year, when President Sisi was there, you know, the summit was there, they declared the admission of Egypt, and they will pay the cost, which is huge. It could be 100 million euros, so on and so forth. So that they don't, in Europe and the Western world, they don't do favors. They are just also only serve their own interests. So these are things have to be seen all together in order to measure and assess, you know, the level and the quality of success. As a diplomat, I focus very much on this development, and I can feel it. But I always have this kind of concern that maybe the media needs to have a deeper focus on the foreign policy, not only on what's being seen in public, but what is behind the scenes.
The lines.
Yes.
Reading between the lines and taking from Your Excellency's words vis-a-vis what we call economic diplomacy, because the stability that has been witnessed in the country right after June 30th revolution has opened the way for Egypt becoming or utilizing economic diplomacy as one of the pillars also of its foreign policy, opening new horizons of cooperation, economic cooperation and investment with countries all over the world.
Very much so. You know, being abroad, the Egyptian mission is in a better situation in order to follow the developments, the economic development in the country where we are, where it's placed. And with the kind of, you have to adjust, you know, your approaches regarding the economic policy or diplomatic policy, as you called, in accordance with what are the reforms targeting and achieving. And this is, that's why it's a major part of the embassy, the ambassador, that again, with the kind of interlinkages between the foreign policy and the internal situation, the economic part of our relations with every and each country or group is something, you know, is not a luxury or a choice. It's part of its the obligations and the responsibilities of the ministry. For example, just to give you an example, I can see, you know, the warning look that on your face, but the BRICS, for example. The BRICS is a new group. It's combined, and that you can call it as intra-regional group, because it links between countries from different regions, not as the region. And Egypt was admitted, you know, without what we can hear about several attempts. You know, no. It was in the interest of the group there to admit Egypt, and you cannot serve the membership of Egypt in an economic group just by express. The foreign policy is the way how you formulate a comprehensive position of the country that would link the economic interests with the political, with the culture, with the social aspects of every issue that you are dealing with internally and externally. So the economic policy is being one of the major objectives, not only goals. It's an objective. It's a kind of long term, because reform will never stop. We'll continue the economic reform, and that is happening in every country. And the only tool that could have, you know, the integrated representation of the Egyptian ministers and authorities is the foreign policy. That's the only way that you can do it. And that's why the problem was never that short of the mechanism, but it was short of the approach, short of a decision, short of a policy. This is happening now.
Yes, it's happening now thanks to June 30th revolution that we're actually celebrating the 13th anniversary that brought to Egypt, of course, all stability that made Egypt today and Egyptian efforts in foreign policy and other dimensions respected all over the world. I thank you so much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Raouf Saad, former assistant to the foreign minister and definitely one of our brightest faces abroad, Your Excellency. Always proud of your efforts and your achievements, and thank you so much for adding value always and coming to the show.
It's an honor and pleasure to be with you always.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. That was Wednesday Debate Live, and I'm Tagharit Hussein. Many thanks for watching.